Hello YouTube, this is the Mind Killer, and we are going to go over the patch notes real quick for the new game Prophecy. They just updated the game today, about an hour ago, and so I just wanted to real quick record my thoughts on it and share the patch with you guys. Just so you know, my son is here, so you might hear some cartoons in the background, or he might actually climb up on my lap in the middle of this. We'll find out. That's him if you just heard that. Hi, buddy. So, if you want to see the patch notes, then you can go to their Discord, or you can find them on Twitter at PlayProphecy. At PlayProphecy, they have the patch notes on their Twitter, and they have a link to their Discord there that you can join. So we're just going to click on the patch notes and read through it. Hi, buddy. So one of the interesting things about patch notes is that they kind of tell you where they want. Yeah, bud. You want to sit up with Papa? Okay. All right. Already. Took 2 seconds. Okay. So, one of the things about patch notes is that they kind of tell you where the developers want things to go, right? For example, with the leaders, they buffed most of the leaders, and they only buffed a few of them, which tells you that the ones they didn't buff, they either like where they are, or they kind of want to see how this buff plays out before they decide what to do with the other ones. So, let's just go through this. It's a bit of a long list, but I want to try and offer some insight on these if I can. So the first balance changes were to the leaders. They buffed Poseidon. They increased the ability stun radius to match the damage radius. So that means he's going to stun more people when he uses his Kraken. And the passive is now applied globally, which means you don't have to group up around Poseidon as much to get the effect of his passive. Thanatos, they increased his physical damage steal ability from 10 to 15, which I think they were buffing Thanatos because he gets a little weak in the later game, but he's pretty powerful early, so that's interesting, and that should make him more powerful. Thor, the passive duration increased from 8 to 12 seconds. Zeus increased the passive radius, again, so you aren't forced to group around your leader as much. Susano has a passive... Well, Susano they really changed, which is good because he was easily the weakest leader. His passive duration was increased from 8 to 12 seconds. And his new ability launches a typhoon in front of him, dealing 200 damage and knocking up enemies in its path. But this time, which is similar to the old ability, but this time it's instant. There's no waiting for it to happen. And it has improved targeting for more consistent results, which is great. Loki's ability now targets the unit with the highest current health. That's an interesting change, buddy. No. Stop. That's an interesting change because Loki tended to use his ability where it didn't belong before, like he would use his ability on pets, and that was just kind of a waste of Loki's skills. But if he's targeting the highest current health, then that means he's probably also going to be targeting like tanks and fighters more often. So I'm not I haven't played it since this patch came out, so we'll have to see how that works out for Loki. The units, they changed a lot of the units. Interesting, they didn't change some of the ones that I thought they might, but, you know, we'll see. So, Xing Qian, his rarity was increased from epic to legendary. His health, his protections from both physical and magical were all increased, which Xing Qian has a interesting ability, and it can be really strong when it works. But giving him these huge buffs, 200 health, max health, with all these protections is really big. He's going to be a super tanky boy. Hu Yi, starting mana increase from 0 to 30. The starting mana increase means that they're going to be able to get their ability off that much faster, right? At least the first one. Rama's physical... Kukulkan also had his starting mana increased, which is great. He was these guys were a little too easy to take down before they could get their ability off, so that makes sense. It will be interesting for Kukulkan because even though he might have been easy to kill, when he got that ability off, it could change the game. Rama's physical damage was increased from 70 to 85. And Cerberus got a big buff, similar to Xing Qian. Now his max health, his physical and magical protections were all increased. And he has CC immunity while he's using his ability. That all looks really good for Cerberus because that was one of the few orange legendary units that I would literally just pass over if I saw it because he never felt impactful. So all of that is really good for Cerberus. Definitely going to start picking him up more. Set clone health and damage increased from 50 to 70%. That's great because I like Set. But Set can also already be pretty powerful, so it'll be interesting if that makes him too powerful or not. We'll see. Artemis, physical damage increased. Attack crit chance increased. Max mana decreased. Max mana decreased is actually a buff because in Prophecy, you have to reach that max mana point to do your ability. So that means she's going to be casting her Tusky a little bit faster every time. And she has more crits, and she has more damage. So Artemis will definitely be a good pickup now. And she wasn't bad before, actually. Cabrakan has an increase in protections, both physical and magical. He was already pretty good, so this is a nice buff. And it's not nearly as big a buff as Cerberus or Xingqian, so obviously they didn't want to buff him too much. Rison, rarity decreased from legendary to epic. That's a good change. His legendary, as a legendary, he wasn't super impactful, but as an epic, I could see that working. He's there with Discordia on the level of mages, I think. His max mana decreased from 90 to 60. Again, that's a buff, not a nerf, even though it's a decrease, because it means he'll be able to cast his ability faster. Camazot's ability damage reduced from 300 to 200, and his silence is reduced from 5 seconds to 3 seconds. I liked Camazot's a lot. He's really fun. He's fun in Smite, and he's fun in Prophecy. So it's sad that they nerfed him, but I do think he was pretty much everybody's go-to fighter in the blue-purple range, him and Hun bots, I guess. So it makes sense. He was probably just too powerful. Khepri, starting mana increased from 0 to 30. That's good. Health gained on Resurrection now scales by 25% per star. That's interesting. That's not a thing that we really think about in other games, but in Prophecy, having something that scales per star makes upgrades that much more important. And something to keep in mind if you have a Khepri. Ancient Treant, our Sylvanas wannabe. He's got an increase in physical and magical protections, also good. So they're making the tanks tankier all around, it seems like, and that's not bad. Sobek, rarity increased from common to uncommon. That's from gray to green. Ability damage reduced from 250 to 200. I think most people agree Sobek's one of the best tanks in the game, so getting a little nerf on his damage is good. And making him a little harder to find and somebody that you're going to find a little later in the game is a good thing. Kronos, attack speed increased from 0.62 to 0.8, also good. Arachne, max mana decrease, that's a buff. So she's going to get her spiders more often. Centurion, crowd controlled reduction now scales from 20% to 100%. Wow, okay, very good. Hachiman's new ability is he calls down a sacred banner, giving himself and nearby allies in the area increased attack speed and crowd control immunity. This is, as far as I can tell, except maybe the crowd control immunity part, the same ability that he had before, except I've seen it played, and now he calls it down on himself instead of an enemy. So he's pretty much guaranteed to get the bonus. Because before he would call it down and then maybe not move on to it, right? And then he wouldn't get the bonus. Dryad, max mana reduced from 100 to 80. Is that the same? Why'd they change the wording there? Max mana decrease would be a buff, right? So she's going to cast her ability a little faster. So everybody's kind of casting their abilities a little faster. The tanks are getting tankier. And it'll be interesting to see that interaction as it plays. Cabrakan is now gray instead of green, which is good because he wasn't like if you had Sobek, you wouldn't trade him out for Cabrakan. And now it makes sense because somebody has to take Sobek's place on the common tank list. Hi, bud. Yeah, you playing with your car? Yeah. Okay. We're almost done here, buddy. On her, physical damage increased from 43 to 45, giving him a little buff. That's good. Shock got a nice buff here. He gets some starting mana, so he doesn't have as far to go to cast his ability, and his max mana is decreased. So it's a double buff. Hades, attack range decreased slightly. They say to make him hit targets more consistently, which is good. And his max health was increased from 550 to 600. So Hades was always kind of, even in Smite, actually, Hades is kind of a tanky mage, right? He's not supposed to be like Merlin or Agni. He's supposed to be more kind of a hybrid fighter almost. Oh, buddy. You all right? Oh, okay. You're okay. Play with your car. That's good, bud. Bring me the phone. Where's my phone? Bring me my phone. His video stopped. I'm sorry. All right. Minotaur, ability damage increased from 150 to 250. Attack damage increased from 46 to 75. Both good things for the Minotaur. That's the gray fighter. He'll definitely be more effective early game now, if that's the one you end up picking up. Traits. Let's just jump to Runic real quick. They completely removed Runic. Can't say that I'm going to miss it all that much. I never really used it to begin with. All right. Blood. Physical damage stolen increased from 15 to 20. That's good. I'm going to pause this real quick. I'll be right back. I got to start his videos again. All right. We're back. Sorry about that. So we were talking about traits. Talking about blood getting a buff. Haste. Haste gets a big buff from 30 to 60 to 40 to 80. So haste is going to be awesome for your hunters and your attack-based assassins. Aether changed from 20 to 40 chance to burn 100% mana to 25 to 50 chance to burn 100% mana. So that's also a buff. I really liked Aether anyway. I usually tried to pick it up. If you get a lot of Aether, you can basically ensure no abilities get cast on the enemy team. So it's a crazy trait to have. Block changed from 6 to 12 to 8 to 16. That just means that it's going to be even. I mean, it's obviously a little better when you get it early, but it's going to be even better late because that's a difference of 4. And block kind of suffered in the late game anyway, so that's a good change. Molten also got a buff. Must not have been getting picked up very much, although I've seen it used pretty effectively. Tech and Earth both got buffs from 25 to 30%, from 20% to 30%. So all of those good changes. Most of these don't get used very often. Molten, Tech, Earth don't get used very often. Perception. I had a perception game the other day that was really, really good. And it looks like they're nerfing perception a little bit, so they must think that it's pretty good too. And like I said, Runic was removed. Items. The Draining Blade, the mana burn increased from 25, 50, 75 to 30, 60, 90. So you're going to get even more mana burn. Great. Spartan Guard, block value is increased. Endless Thirst, the lifesteal is increased. And Bloodforge, the shield value is increased. So all of these items got buffed. They must have all been underperforming. Nothing big there. Like, these aren't really any of the big items, but now that they've been buffed, maybe they will be. So keep an eye out for those. And then we got some bug fixes. And I won't go over all of those. A lot of those you've probably seen, like when you were in the leader menu in the game and there was like a blank spot. And that was weird because if that was at the top, then you wouldn't even know what leader you're getting in the next game. So different stuff like that. Some item fixes. The ice trait was incorrectly displaying this tooltip, which didn't matter. And they've improved some UI changes. I've already seen some of these UI changes. Adding 246 completion text on the trait panel is really important because it lets you know that you need 2 at a minimum to even use your traits. And it tells you which ones are as far as they are. So that's great. They've added some timers and some other things too. So, and then the last change is that new players are now required to complete 10 casual matches before being able to queue for ranked. So kind of think of that as like doing qualifiers before you can play ranked games. And that's a good change too. So all in all, some great changes, a lot of balance changes. They didn't touch some of the bigger, more used units like maybe Agni or Merlin or even King Arthur. They've already changed King Arthur in the previous patch. So I think they just want to see more data on those and see how these new changes stack up against those. But it does kind of show you they're trying to get their tanks to be more relevant. So you'll definitely want to pay more attention to tanks when you're playing. And obviously some of these guys they're going to get their abilities off faster, which I think is really important for some of these, especially Kukulkan and Shock. Shock was pretty meh. Like, I usually passed on Shock if I saw him. So him being able to get his ability off that much faster and more often is a good thing. Anyway, these are the patch notes. You can go on their Twitter or on their Discord to see them and get out there and start playing Prophecy and see how the changes look. Thanks for watching.